Welcome to tonight's live stream. I'm going to get started in a minute. I just need a minute to set things up and get ready for tonight's show. What's going on, Steve Alamac? What's going on, stranger? And I just came up with this topic after thinking about what Mr. Superboy had talked about in his video regarding the mainstream media's continuing negative images of black men. So Mr. Superboy's video a couple of weeks ago was one of the inspirations for this stream, and also what happened with your Little Nas X. So those are the two inspirations for tonight's stream. And before I get into tonight's stream, I want to give everybody a progress report on the upcoming comic John Haynes at Death's Door. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to hire the artist I wanted to hire. He's not available right now because he's currently working on his first novel, and he's also working on some other comic projects. But I have been in touch with other artists, and I'm this close to picking an artist for the upcoming John Haynes at Death's Door comic. I was listening to some advice from the creator of Blue Marvel, who told me to go to some foreign comic artists, and I found some art that looks very promising, and I'm getting this close to making a decision on who will be taking the project. So everything, I'm trying to get it ready for eventually getting the pages and getting, because I've already got the budget together. So the book, all I'm looking for is to just find the right artist for the project, and that then we'll be ready to do the At Death's Door comic. And before I get into the subject of tonight's stream, what I want everybody to do is head over to Amazon.com and pick up the books for the 2021 catalog, John Haynes Taking Care of Business, and Isis Revenge of the Cyber Goddess. And I also have other books on Amazon.com that feature positive images of black men and women, and I'd love if you guys would check them out. So I'm going to leave a link to those books in the chat, and you guys can check those books out on Amazon, and that really helps out. Also, I want everybody to put in a pre-order for my upcoming paperback and ebook. Put in a pre-order for the Kindle version of Stop Simping in Cyberspace going on tonight. Put in a pre-order for that book, and that book's going to help you with online predators. Now, tonight's topic is called Hollywood's War on Black Men. And it's clear to me that Hollywood has definitely been declaring war on the black man for, I'd say, a good 20 or 30 years. I even go back and say as far that Hollywood has been declaring war on black men since its inception. Now, your Hollywood has never really liked black men, and they have made every effort to demonize the image of black men in their media, because the Hollywood institution was always designed to elevate the image of the white man and the white woman. And in the original white supremacist form of Hollywood, the media arm of white supremacy, Hollywood was designed to elevate the white man and the white woman's image as the ultimate ideal and demonize the image of the black man. So in most of their media, they only have several roles for the black man to play. Either they want the black man to play the minstrel, who is just a buck dancing, bojangling, lazy, incompetent clown, or they want the black man to go out here and play the big black brute who the hero has to go out here and kill. Or they usually have this other role where they have the black man as this soft, neutered, emasculated male, or they have another role where they had the black man as this, these days, this effeminized black man. So these are the kind of images that the mainstream media likes to push as related to black men. And this is done by design because they want to go out here and minimize the image of the black man in their media. And they want to make it where they don't really see him as somebody who they value in their story. So they don't really want us to see a black man as a leader. They don't want us to see a black man as an authority figure. They don't want us to see a black man as a head of household. And they don't want us to see a black man as a hero. No, oftentimes what they want you to see is a black man in the background of a white man or a white woman's story. And usually, again, they only want you to see that black man in the far background of their story. And they want you to see him as either some docile servant who is completely submissive, or they want you to see him as the bad guy in the story. So they don't want you to see him as somebody with his own story and his own experiences, and they don't want you to see that in their media platform. And just like I have said many times, the reason why they want that is because this is the image they feel comfortable with, and this is the image that makes their world smooth. So in the mainstream Hollywood, they don't really want to go out here and elevate the black man or the black woman's image. But when it comes down to the black man, they do not really want to go out here and elevate the black man because it's their institution. It goes back to another saying I have said for over 7 years: those who control the money control the media, and those who control the media control the narrative. And when you have the money to make the media, then you can go out here and tell the stories that you please on that media. And that's one of the reasons why we get so many negative images of black men in media. What's going on, Gboot2786? Glad to see you here. I'm talking about how Hollywood declares war on black men. And again, they have the money to make the media that they want. And part of that media is designed to change, to make you think a certain way. And when it comes down to the mainstream media, they have declared war on the modern day black man. And they've been declaring war in ways for ever since the inception of Hollywood with the minstrel roles. And they have been declaring war back in the 70s with the roles of the black man being the muggers, the black man being the person who participates in sexual violence, the black man being the one who was always the jive time street dude. They have always gone out here and declared war through this media. And this media, it's not just entertainment. It is designed to socialize the way you think and believe, and it is designed to make you have a certain perception about people. That's why it's called programming, because it's designed to program your mind with a sense of ideas about yourself. And that's why you have to be very careful about the media you imbibe, because that media can have an impact on how you think about yourself and how you think about the world. And when it comes down to most mainstream media, it is designed to be very anti-Black man, and it is designed to promote anti-Black man racism and anti-Black man misandry. Now, this media, again, is designed this way because they don't want you to see a Black man in the same way you see a white man or a non-Black man. They don't want you to see a Black man in that way because they don't want you to go out here and see a Black man as a human being. So what they want to do is present the Black man as less than. And when they present that Black man as less than, then you start to see yourself as second best. And that's one of the parts of the programming in the media is you start to see yourself as number two, because when you start to see yourself in the background of their media, you don't see yourself as important from day one. So if you're looking at an image, for example, if you look at this image on the cover of John Haynes Taking Care of Business, you see that the Black man is up front. But if you had mainstream media, they would take the Black male character and push him to the background. So he would not be seen in a leadership role. And when you go out here and buy that media, you start learning, oh, I can be the sidekick to the white guy, but you don't aspire to be a leader of yourself. And that's why it's important to go out here and, again, buy Black media from new Black media sources, because when you go out here and you buy mainstream media, what it does is it teaches you to see yourself as second best. So that's one of the things, part of the war on Black men, is this psychological warfare. And that psychological warfare is designed to make you see yourself as less than. And that's one part of the war waged on the Black male mind, because a lot of Black males are seeking white acceptance, and it's one of the things that messes them up. Gabria, I'm glad you liked the cover. Mike Williams did a fantastic job on this cover, and this cover is inspired by the Keenan Ivory Wayans movie A Low Down Dirty Shame, which starred Jada Pinkett and Sally Richardson, and that had one of the strongest images I saw of a Black man. And I wanted to pay homage to that fantastic movie poster with this cover. So there are images out there, but we're the ones who usually produce them. And I wanted to pay homage to one of the great Black images I ever saw on a movie poster with this one. So that's what I learned about images. And that's what Black people have to learn about these images. Again, these are designed to wage war on you. And again, starting in the 60s and the 70s, they started their war by telling us that we were pimps, we were hustlers, and we were criminals. And a lot of people bought into that, believing that, and they got into all of this street life, and they believed that this was the norm for Black people. But that's programming by media, social engineering. They want you to aspire to these images because they want you to think that this is the only image of a Black man. They don't want to think that a Black man can go out here and be an entrepreneur. They don't want you to think that a Black man can go out here and get a good job. They don't put those images out there because they don't want Black men to be seen as competitors, and they don't want Black men to even start thinking about competing against other races. So what they want you to do with their media is they want to mess with your frame of thinking and have you thinking, oh, all I can be is a criminal. All I can be is the streets. All I can be is the hood. And that's all part of the programming in that media, even though there are many Black men out here who are putting in work at jobs, Black men out here in businesses, but we don't see those Black men on television, and we don't see those men presented in any sort of film anymore. I mean, we don't see those kind of guys. in mainstream media. No, oftentimes all they do is give us negative images of black men. And these are not harmless images or harmless characters. These are salvos fired at the black community. And they are designed to wage war on the black mind, because once they can get you to start thinking that this is how you're supposed to live, then you start acting like that media, and that creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. So that's part of the war that is waged on the black man by your Hollywood, and that's one of the things that they do. Now, we've seen this war waged on the black man in your media with many of these roles, again, from the 70s. And we also see it coming back ever since the 2001, I say, with Denzel Washington and Halle Berry winning the Oscar for Monsters Ball. That's when we started to see a major shift. Now, we started to see the start to change of things in the 90s with the whole hood movie thing. That was trying to take us off the road that people like Bill Cosby were trying to steer us on, where we were starting to see some diversity as related to black images and diversity as related to the black experience. And what Hollywood wanted to do was take us back on the road to the demonization of black men. Now, they were pushing this with movies like Oprah Winfrey's The Color Purple, which is basically a white supremacist piece of propaganda and is very anti-black man. I'd have to say it's just a big piece of misandry. But there were other images to counter your Color Purple, which was designed to demonize the image of the black man and make him out to be the ultimate monster. Because your Color Purple was one of those movies that was designed to push the idea that a black man was, one, a black brute, two, a sexual deviant, and three, completely out of control. And this media was done by your Alice Walker, who was married to a white man, and it was lauded and acclaimed by many of your white supremacists as a acclaimed masterpiece. It was given a National Book Award, and that's one of the tricks black people really have to look out for, is this celebration by mainstream media of black images, because what they want to do is trick you by making you believe that, oh, this is an acclaimed story, but really behind that is white supremacy is pushing a narrative that is very anti-black. And that was what happened with The Color Purple. That is what happened with your Training Day. That is what happened with your Monsters Ball. And the whole thing is they want to go out here and wage this war by making the black man into a boogeyman. And they make that black man into a boogeyman, and they go out here and they push that narrative through their media. And they've pushed it through The Color Purple, and they've also pushed it through other shows like the Oprah Winfrey Show that was going on in the 80s, pushing the no good black man, the cheating black man, the womanizing black man. And the Hollywood way, again, these are salvos fired at the black community. And what's sad is most people don't see how the shots are impacting them. They don't see that these shots out here, they are being fired at you. And while you're looking at their critically acclaimed media, you can't see how they are severely damaging your mind, because they're not making you see the black man as a leader, a head of household, a provider, a person who has value in the community. Most of the media does is present you with the image that the black man is either a criminal, an irresponsible man, incapable of being a good father, incapable of being a head of household, incapable of caring for children, and incapable of loving someone. All this media does in a lot of cases is present the black man as one big, large, walking, talking penis, and all he wants to do is get his freak on. And that's one of the things that they push in a lot of their media. And that's one of the things that they like to do, because that all goes back to white supremacy's narratives about the black man being a black brute. And most people don't really understand how that's, again, part of that war. They want you to see this black man as the bad guy, and they want you to see the white man as the good man. But that's, again, all part of pushing a narrative. Now, throughout the 90s, we saw this also in other movies, as well as these talk shows going on. And one of the movies I saw it in addition to The Color Purple back in the 80s, was the movie Waiting to Exhale, like D Wood 78 has mentioned. Now, that movie also was about demonizing the image of the black man. And in that movie, all we saw were black women complaining about this no good black man. And as they sat there and complained about this no good black man, all we saw were negative experiences that these women have regarding black men. And then your Terry McMillan was pushing this as a narrative about black men and not really giving us any sort of balance as related to the picture. So with her book and the movie, it was all about waging more war on black men and making the black man out to be this bad guy who was pushing the narrative that he was incapable of caring for a woman, incapable of having a relationship, and again, being a whoremonger who was one big walking, talking penis and never, ever putting any sort of perspective on anything to say, hey, these females are making really poor choices. For example, with the Robin character, she was a side piece waiting for this man to divorce for this man to divorce his wife, and your Savannah having impossible high standards for these guys, but still looking for these guys on the low-hanging fruit. And then you had your Bernadine, who had serious unrealistic expectations and then had mental health issues, I believe. And then your Gloria, who was an emasculating female. So we never got any sort of balance to the story where the females took responsibility for their actions, and we never saw these females change in any sort of way. It was always the guys were so bad. And that's, again, that was the mainstream media waging war on the black man and not giving us that balanced, humanized perspective, or showing us that a black man was capable of being any sort of leader. And that's the kind of stuff that Hollywood pushes out, because they don't want to elevate that black man to any sort of level in their media. And most black people have to really think critically about this, because if they are the ones spending the money, they're not going to want to elevate a black man's image, because the media arm of white supremacy, again, is all about elevating the white man, and they don't want to put a black man on the same level, because their goal is to get everybody following the white man and the white woman so that they can go and get those dollars at the expense of others. Because as long as everybody is looking up to the white man and the white woman and seeing their images as ideal, then they don't have to worry about any sort of competition coming from the black man or the black woman. So a lot of the big mistakes that many people make about this media out here is thinking, oh, I can go to Hollywood and make movies about black people, but they're not going to let you make those types of movies that elevate black men on those platforms, because any sort of media to elevate a black man, that's going to cost Hollywood money, because instead of people chasing the white ideal, they're going to be chasing a competing ideal. And that's part of the thing that many black people really need to realize about most of your media out here, and why it's not really smart to go out here and look to that media for your image. And that's one of the mistakes a lot of Black people, including myself, have made over the years. I mean, when I first started writing stories back in the 90s, I always thought that, oh, everything is going to be fair and I would have a shot. That was one of the mistakes I made from watching things in Black, as related to the rise of all of those Black Hollywood types like Robert Townsend and Bill Cosby and the Hudlin brothers. I thought, oh, you can go through those channels. But after my own experiences with the publishing industry and trying to get into the entertainment industry by selling screenplays, I learned that there is a real war on Black men, and there is a effort to keep Black images out of their system. So that was what I learned when I was submitting books like the first John Haynes to publishers. I mean, I got a lot of resistance as related to that book, and I didn't know why. And it wasn't until I watched another YouTuber, Coach Red Pill, talk about how white females were controlling the publishing industry and how they only wanted certain narratives in their publishing space, that I soon found out that you weren't getting any stories about Black men to be a counter narrative, because those white women wanted that to be the narrative for Black people. And again, that's why, again, goes back to those who control the money, control the media, and those who control the media control the narrative. And they wanted that narrative out here with the Black woman at the bottom of the world and the Black man at the complete bottom of the world as the bad guy, because that's something they wanted, so that the white girls could appear to be more attractive in comparison and have more successful lives in comparison. So they did not want you to see a successful Black man like I was planning in the first John Haynes, and they didn't like the idea of what I was presenting in another book, A Recipe for Success, where I was presenting this deal between two Black companies, and they didn't like the whole idea that I had the down low character as the bad guy. So I was wondering what was wrong, but I soon found out that your Hollywood, again, they don't want to see certain images, and that's why we see all of these negative images, especially negative images of Black men. And these negative images have gotten more and more negative over the last couple of years. And just like Mr. Superboy was talking about in his video, I mean, they have actually reverted, as I see it, back to the dark days of the 70s. I mean, shows like Empire, shows like Power, they show us Black men as criminals. They show us Black men as unethical, and they show us Black men just participating in all of this criminal activity without any sort of counterpoint. And that's very dangerous media for a young brother to sit there and watch, because when he sees an image of a Black man participating in being in a gang, participating in the drug game, and participating in all sorts of criminal activity, that has a major impact on his mind, and it starts to shape how he sees reality. So they don't really want you to see again, balanced images. They want to give you these kind of images on the regular, and they want to give you those kind of images on the regular so they can have you thinking this is the only way of life for a Black man. So that's one of the things that they're doing with that kind of media. And they like seeing those kind of images because it makes many of the racists feel comfortable. Racists love to see images of Black men being drug dealers. Racists like to see Black men being gang members. Racists like to see Black men being street hoods with gold chains and Air Jordan sneakers. They love seeing these kind of images because it makes them feel secure about their place in the world and making them feel safe that they don't have to compete with Black men. And this type of media, again, it's not the media we are creating. And we have to understand this type of media is firing shots at Black people. And the whole thing is, it's about trying to attack the Black man and make the Black man into a boogeyman. Now, we also see this in a lot of the news. And one of the examples that we saw in the news as related to trying to wage war on Black men was how they were doing it by proxy with Bill Cosby. Now, over the last 5 years with Bill Cosby, the mainstream media has shown tremendous bias in covering the Cosby case. Now, as they were covering this Cosby case, I noticed many of those in the news media were not being very objective. And instead of using words like alleged, many of these people were out and out saying that Bill Cosby had participated in crimes he had never committed, and actually were just basically not even trying this man. They were trying to convict him in the court of public opinion and not stating any sort of reasonable doubt and giving people a minute to think critically about his case. As I was watching much of the news related to Bill Cosby, they were practically making it like he had done these crimes, even though a man in America, it was supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. And in many of the reports, they were making statements like your Bill Cosby had gone out here and committed these crimes. And I was literally appalled by what I saw with our so-called news, because our so-called news, I thought, was supposed to be objective. Unfortunately, I did not see much objectivity. All I saw with these reports on Bill Cosby was basically them trying to attack Bill Cosby by proxy, and they used him as a proxy to attack Black men, basically trying to make it like this man had committed a crime and saying things like he had forced these women and saying things like he had participated in crimes he had never even been charged with. I mean, when I look at the way the news covered the Cosby case, as a publisher, it disturbed me. And the reason why it disturbed me was because they just had, again, no objectivity whatsoever. And they basically made him out to be a villain. And they still do it to this day, saying disgraced comedian Bill Cosby, even though he was never, he had his conviction overturned, had all of his rights restored by the court, and it's like the case never happened. But the mainstream media continues to attack this man, and that's again another shot in the war on Black men, where they go out here and take these shots at Black men. And that was one of the things that really disturbed me. I mean, if you look at every report, it is basically slander on and libel on Mr. Cosby's name. And every report basically went out here and was saying this man had done things that were never proven in the original court case, and saying things that he had done things that had never been done at all. And that again shows you the war on Black men, how they attacked this man, maligned his name, maligned his reputation. The media declared war on him, and they wanted to go out here and attack this elderly man in an effort to destroy, one, his legacy, and then attack the Black man by proxy. And they did this with malice of forethought because they wanted to make him out to be the bad guy of their narrative. And when they couldn't make him the bad guy of their narrative, you had people like Kevin Steele throwing a temper tantrum, as some reports state, see how I'm using the proper journalistic terms, was allegedly participated in a temper tantrum and going off because he could not make Mr. Cosby fit their narrative and fit their story. And that, again, shows how dangerous this is, this war on Black men, because these people in the entertainment industry, they were taking the news again, journalism that's supposed to be objective and using it to destroy a black man's image. And they took a shot at that black man and black men by proxy. And that, again, is one of the reasons why I say there's a war on black men. Now, this war is not only out to demonize the image of the black man, it is also designed to further socially engineer the black man's thinking to be dysfunctional. Now, the first part of how they make the black man's thinking extremely dysfunctional is by making him believe that he is less than and make himself number two in his own eyes. And that's how they go out here and mess with the black man's mind with these images. And that's part of it, is they make him think he's number two. And the other part is they get him to play roles in the white supremacist world. And I talk about this in my novel Spellbound, which talks about this at depth, about trying to fit into the black box that is acceptable by white people, and how that quest for white validation can mess you up, because they want you to fit into that box and play those roles. And all these roles are repackaging of old stereotypes like the black brute or the minstrel. And what they do with black men is we go from things like the jive time pimp and the hustler to what they do is they repackage those roles back in the 90s, and they called it the thug and the gangster. Now, when it came to the rap game, when it was run by black people, there were no thugs and gangsters. Rap was created by a group of black men who wanted to present a positive image of black people, and oftentimes the rap produced by black people from the late 70s to the late 80s was extremely positive, and we got a lot of diversity. But your white supremacists, they did not want to see any sort of positive images. So what they wanted to do was make that rap fit their narrative. Now, I'm going to ask everybody to head over to the Cash App and drop a donation, because that's how I stay on the air. So just hit the Cash App up real quick. Even $1, it goes a long way. So 84 in the room. If you guys would drop to the Cash App or pick up a book, it would be greatly appreciated. But the rap game was never a thing about being a thug. It was always about you expressing yourself. But your white supremacists, they wanted to see black men presented the way they wanted to be, and they wanted that black man to fit their old stereotypes. So that's why they came out with the NWA's Straight Out of Compton, and they came out with this to kind of fit their narrative as to being a thug. So they wanted to go out here and create this thug image, and the thug is not something that is of us. No, that was created by a group of white executives to wage war on the black male mind. And what they wanted to do was get the black male to buy into this image so that he would go out here and try to fit this fake identity of being this thug or this gangster. And that's, again, was never us. That's what the white man wanted to see. He likes the image of the black man sagging his pants, using lots of profanity, drinking malt liquor. And if you compare that image to what happened with the pimp in the 70s, you'll see a lot of parallels between the two in the media, and start to see that, again, this is all about psychological warfare on the black mind. And they want to go out here and show you these kind of images to get you to think a certain way. They want you to think of yourself, again, as this guy who is below the white man and non-black men, and that the only life you can live is the streets and the hood, and then go out here and think the only way you can go out and survive in the world is by killing another black man. So that's another shot in the salvo on the war on the black male mind. And that was designed to, again, make that black man see himself as less than and make him see himself as second best, and never think he could aspire to any sort of success. All of this is designed to mess with the black man's head and psychologically make it where he doesn't really think in any way at all. And that's something that they don't want you to see. They don't want you to see educated professional brothers. They don't want you to see critical thinking brothers, and they don't want you to see black people doing different things. Now, in addition to this thug and this gangster, the made up image, they also want to push another narrative at the black man, and that is the effeminized black man. Now, we have seen this effeminized black man. Thank you, Michael, for the Cash App. Really appreciate it. And if you guys want to donate to the Cash App, you can donate as well. Again, every dollar counts. It keeps me on the air. And again, they're pushing the effeminized black man. And this effeminized black man is another image they have pushed in comedy. And what they want to do is put this black man in a dress and have this black man out here saying that he is in the role of a woman. And again, this image is another shot at the black man, and it's designed to degrade the black male image, because you'll have some people out there saying, oh, white guys put on dresses, but that's not in proportion to the number of images we see of black men in dresses. Now, I remember just sitting there, I did an article called Black Men in Dresses, Entertainment or Emasculation. I'll see if I can find it. See if I can find it. I don't think I can find it. Let me see if I can find it. So I wrote this back in 2010. Way back in 2010. I don't think I can find it just yet, but I wrote that over 10 years ago. 11 years ago, actually. And I remember sitting there and I submitted that to a website. I forget it's called, I think it was Black Bloggers or one of them. And I talked about it back then because I was noticing the pattern of black men in dresses way back in 2010. And I noticed that back then, and I was saying, there's a real serious problem with these black men in dresses. And these black men in dresses, it's looking like something that they are just pushing all the time. And I said, in proportion to the images of white men in dresses, all we see are all of these images of black men wearing dresses. And you see oftentimes, 10 to 1 when it came down to these kind of images. And as I noticed this pattern of black men in dresses, I said that this is some psychological warfare being waged on the black mind. And I said to myself, they're trying to make this black man think some way about himself, because if you see constant images of someone who looks like you wearing a dress, that is done by design, and it's being done deliberately with malice of forethought, and it's being done to push the idea of a black man in a certain role. And basically, they are not just saying that the black man is incapable of being a leader. They're basically saying that they're placing the black man in a female role. So all of these images of black men in dresses, this is designed to deliberately socially engineer the idea of being effeminized, and it is designed to push the idea that the black man would be better in a role of a female. So there's an agenda clearly behind many of these roles, because I noticed, that these images take place over the course of 30 years. I want you to go through, just go to YouTube and type in black men in dresses and see how many images come up over the last 30 years. And I've seen this escalation of this whole black man in a dress thing all over time. And again, this is Hollywood waging war on the black man and waging a war to push an agenda of making it where the black man sees himself in the female role and not see himself as in a heterosexual male role. And lately we've seen with guys like your Kid Cutie, them pushing this kind of thing even further. And with your Little Nas X, we are really starting to see an extreme escalation of not only the effeminization of the black man, but also the homosexualization of the black man. Because that's the other thing that they like to push in their media, because how many heterosexual images of black men do we see these days? I mean, we don't really get to see many images of heterosexual black men in your TV shows and your movies, because in the mainstream media, they oftentimes try to give you the homosexual black man so that they can go out here and passively talk about diversity, but aggressively minimize black man as related to his image. So they will go out here and passively, looks like they are messing with my screen because they don't want me to talk about this kind of stuff. But that's the kind of stuff that they do go out here and push, because they don't want you to see the black man as a man. They don't want you to see heterosexual black men being fathers. They don't want you to see heterosexual black men in a leadership role. And they want you to see these kind of images like in Little Nas X's what I call that industry baby. I mean, that title is quite ironic, because it's all about the industry going out here and declaring war on black men. And that whole video was just one nuclear shot at black men in their agenda, because it was just a compilation of negativity. One, you have the black man in the role of an inmate, which is what the white supremacist prefers to see. Then you have the image of the black man in prison, another image that the white supremacist is comfortable with. And the other thing that they love to see in the media is the image of this black man being effeminized, with all of those black men twerking in prison, and that gratuitously disturbing shower scene. It's all about making the black man the person who is at the bottom of the world. And the industry baby video wasn't just something to say something about your Little Nas X. It also said something about the industry of Hollywood, because the industry of Hollywood clearly has contempt for the black man and has deep rooted contempt for the black man's image. And they willfully are intentionally degrading the black man's image. And that's one of the things that is quite suspect about the so-called leftists who are so-called woke, who sit there and talk about diversity. These people will sit here and talk about diversity and inclusion, but I find it interesting that you never see them include any heterosexual black men in any of their images. I mean, I find it interesting. They'll talk about diversity and inclusion, and it'll feature an image of a black woman. It'll feature an image of Hispanics and Asians, and they'll be straight. But when it comes down to the image of the black man, he is either one of these beta males, or he is one of these emasculated males, or he's one of these effeminized males. So when they talk about diversity, you don't see a heterosexual black man, and that again shows the war on heterosexual black men and heterosexual black manhood. And it shows they don't really want to include the black man, because, as I stated before, they don't want to compete with the heterosexual black man. Because when you look at all of this media, that you don't see, again, heterosexual black men in a way that is healthy, like we saw in Netflix's Luke Cage. I mean, in Netflix's Luke Cage, that was the last time we saw a black man being a man. And I'd say that was the last time I saw a heterosexual black man in a leadership role since the golden age of the Cosby Show. Now, I remember in the golden age of the Cosby Show, we would see strong images of black men like Bill Cosby's Heathcliff Huxtable, or later on in movies like Spike Lee's movies or Robert Townsend movies, or ABC's A Man Called Hawk. I mean, that show only lasted a season, but Avery Brooks played one of the strongest images of black manhood in that one season. And if you can find those episodes on YouTube and compare them to the images of today, I'm telling you, you get a surprise, because that was one of the strongest portrayals of black manhood I have ever seen in my life. And I was sad that in '89 I didn't appreciate that show, but you will appreciate that show. And there were other shows that were out here like Deep Space Nine, which gave you a strong image of a black man in a fantasy role with Ben Sisko. I mean, he was a father and he was a captain. Those type of images that we don't really get to see. I mean, yeah, I remember Daddy Daycare. I didn't see that movie, but we really don't get to see, again, those types of images like all the time. And we're seeing less of them as related to things. And again, over 30 years, we have gone from characters like Luke Cage. I mean, they basically canceled that show. They said, oh, it was other things. But I believe it's because they didn't like the idea of a black man representing power, representing leadership, representing authority, and a black man telling people what to do. I mean, some people, they were like, oh, Luke Cage was going evil, but I didn't see how he was going evil, because when I looked at Luke Cage, I saw a guy who was concerned about his community, looking to protect his community, really caring about his community, and looking out for the people in his community. And they were trying to make it like he was doing some sort of evil when he became the power man. But when he became the power man, it was to protect the community from those outside forces that were out here exploiting the community. And the mainstream media tried to make it look like he was the bad guy, but he was not the bad guy. I mean, that's what men do in their communities. I mean, when I'm writing the John Haynes character and I have him the CEO of Morris Phillips, I have him in that kind of role as that boss who is running things and having to make those tough decisions and be able to look out for the people in his community, and also the protecting it from these outside spiritual forces and these outside physical forces, like I had in the book The Man with Nothing to Lose. And that's the kind of stories that mainstream Hollywood does not want to put out here as related to black men. No, because that means you would inspire some young brothers, and I would make them want to aspire to be something, because when you're watching a lot of this media, it can really shape the way you think. Because I remember as a boy being shaped by things like Robert Townsend's Hollywood Shuffle and lots of other black shows. And when I would sit there and watch those shows, it would make me see myself as being capable of doing more and thinking about doing things like creating my own media. I mean, when I heard about how Robert Townsend went out here and made his first movie with credit cards, when I heard about how Spike Lee made his first movie with credit cards, it really made me start thinking about making my own stories and thinking about ways to get those stories to the marketplace. And as print-on-demand technology came about, I started to say, if these publishing companies won't make the books that I want to produce that feature positive images of black men out here, then I'll make those books and publish them myself and go out here and get them to the marketplace. That's what I said to myself. And I would do this on shoestring budgets. And yeah, in the beginning, the covers were not that great, but I managed to get them to the marketplace, and I managed to learn over time. And that's what people do when they're out here and they want to do something positive. They go out here and they make the efforts to get that media to the marketplace. And that's the only way I see of getting media featuring positive images of black men to the marketplace. is these days us going out here and making it ourselves. Just like Robert Townsend, just like the Hudlin brothers, and just like Bill Cosby, we have to go out here and build on their legacy. And we have to go out here and do this because there is a war being waged on black men by the mainstream media. And this war is designed to present you with these images of these effeminized black men, these emasculated black men, these weak black men, and these incapable black men. And what they don't want you to see an image of a healthy heterosexual black man in their media because they fear having to compete with those who are inspired by those kind of images. Because when you have a man who is inspired by those kinds of images, then what happens is those black men start thinking about things instead of going to go out here and sell drugs like they have in Power. They have a black man who is thinking about taking power and doing things like opening up a black-owned business, or operating a business out of their garage, or operating a business in their home. That's the kind of thinking that they don't want you to start thinking, because if you got a brother out here and he's like me with the SJS Direct Imprint, which is run from my bedroom, that's something that inspires others to say, hey, I can go out here and do this too. And I can go out here. I may not be, having the Fifth Avenue office, but I'm an entrepreneur and I'm out here making products. I mean, they may not be selling hundreds of thousands of units, but they are reaching an audience. And the whole thing is you're still in the game, and you may not be in the greatest place in the game, but you're still playing. And that's the most important thing. I mean, I wonder, where are we going to see the sitcom about the black man who has a black-owned business that he's operating out of his home? Where are we going to get the sitcom about the black man who is out here working on a comic? Where are we going to get the show about the black man who is out here, working on cars and doing things like learning how to be a mechanic? I mean, why aren't we getting the kind of programming that teaches young brothers how to do things other than sell dope? That's the critical question I would like to ask many of these Hollywood producers, because I know the answer to that question. They're going to say, oh, that probably wouldn't sell, but I believe it would sell because from what I've seen on YouTube, there are a lot of guys out here who are into cars and a lot of guys who have side hustles. And we get no TV shows about the brothers out here doing the side hustles, or the guys working on cars, or the guys out here who are functioning. All we get is dysfunction. And that's what they want to go out here and push, is that kind of dysfunction. Like Mr. Superboy's talking about the Upshaws, and what I saw in the trailer for the Upshaws, I mean, they like to see black guys who are just stupid and incompetent. And that's not who black men are at all, but that's all part of Hollywood's war on the black man. They don't want you to see the black man out here going out here working towards improving his life, because they want you to see him as a loser, because that's how the white supremacist sees the black man. They see him as a loser. They see him as a failure, and they want you to start believing you're a failure at a young age, because they don't want to go out here and again compete with you in the marketplace. Because if they know if they have to compete with you, you may possibly dominate an entire industry. Because a lot of people don't know, it was a black man who created the video game cartridge. But imagine if that black man had his own computer company, he would possibly be dominating the video game industry. And you have guys out here who invented things like air conditioning and things like many things, like the guy who created the filament for the light bulb. Imagine if those guys went out here and created business and industry. They would possibly, like I said in my whole video, what if black people didn't have to deal with white supremacy? The world would be a completely different place. The black community would basically be like China or Japan. It would be a nation within a nation, and it would have incredible economic power, but they don't want to have that because the whole thing is they want to dominate these industries, and they don't want you to see a black man in that role of being in that leadership role. So they don't want you to see that black man in that leadership role, and they also don't want you to see a black man in the role of a father. Now, one of my viewers just a couple of days ago, he sent me a donation to a Cash App and asked me to look at this Time magazine picture that I talked about. And in the picture, they don't have the black man in that image as a father. They got the single mom. They had the two daughters standing up on the pedestal. And they also had the little boy. And the way they presented the boy was extremely disturbing because they had the boy dressed up in some unkempt clothes, had him sitting down, had the mother turned away from him. And then the mother is looking at the daughters, and the daughters are standing above the boy. And that image was another shot at the black man, basically saying that the black man, the father, was not in the image, and that the father didn't care about his family, one, and that the black boy had no value to the family. So the whole image there was another shot by Time magazine, which was talking about critical race theory. But the great irony is they put a lot of racism in that image. It was similar to like what Claushon was talking about, what they did on the image of Rolling Stone, basically saying that the black woman was the leader of the black community, had her standing with the children, and they had that image there, and the black man was not there being the leader. And what was really troubling about that image was they were saying that the black man couldn't even lead his own community, and that the woman was leading the community. They basically erased the image of the black man as related to family. And that, again, is another propaganda shot in the war on black men by saying that the black man is incapable of caring for his family and capable of leading his family. So these kind of images, they are war on black men, and they are war on the black community. And people really need black people. This is why it's important for us to have our own media, because in our own media, you get images like this, and you get images like this that show you an image of strong manhood and strong leadership. Because in this image, you have the John Haynes character presented as a leader. You have the John Haynes character with the women behind him, and he's in a role of a protector, and he's in a role of power. And again, this is the kind of image that when your kids start looking at these kind of images, it can shape who they are. And the same thing, that's why I always read lots of books like Milestone Comics, and what they're doing now at Concrete Comics. I mean, if you really want to see some really good images of black people, you definitely want to check out Concrete Comics. And these Concrete Comics, they feature some of the strongest images of black men and women, and you definitely want to check them out. Yardley, thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate it. He says, I got your book, Stop Simping, off Amazon. I can't wait to read it. Recently got off a relationship with a single mother. I'm sorry that your relationship didn't work, but it's hard to do that with single moms. And I think Stop Simping will help you. And I also think another book I made will help you. And that book is The Misadventures of Captain Save-'Em. It'll also teach you about how dysfunctional the group of women single moms really are. So I thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate it. And I hope the book really helps you be able to work on your relationships in the future. DWT 1975, thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate it. And yeah, Bloodsport, I think you're going to enjoy Concrete Comics. They've been sending me books for review, and I have an upcoming video at midnight where I'm going to be reviewing their Decimation Earth book. But Concrete Comics has some really strong images of black men and black women, and they have been knocking it out of the park. I say they're actually even better than Milestone Comics. The books that they're putting out are absolutely fantastic. And I read their Acolyte #3, and Acolyte #3, I have to say, is the best comic of 2021. And I think it's going to be up there soon if it's not up there now. And you definitely want to get that book. Now, there are also other publishers out here producing positive books featuring Black men, like Black Sands. Black Sands has been doing a fantastic job of producing, strong, positive images of Black men. And they have a lot of great books over there, and you definitely want to check those out. And Black Sands has been really making a lot of strong progress with their publications. And I have to say that they have just been putting out some really good stuff. And this is how you combat the war on Black men. You start to feed your mind this type of content. And this type of content makes you see yourself as valuable. It makes you see that you have a worth, and it really helps with your mental health, because a lot of Black men out here, this war takes a toll on them. And what they don't understand is if you feed your mind poison, you're going to get sick. If you sit there and watch a lot of this mainstream media, it's going to make you start thinking the only thing you can be is a thug. The only thing you can be is a gangster. The only thing you can be is a street dude, because there's nobody there to show you that there are examples of manhood and models of manhood. And that was something that Mike Williams and I were talking about when I started the John Haynes series, about the complete lack of images of heterosexual men out here, heterosexual Black men in leadership roles. And that was one of the things that motivated me to do the John Haynes series, was to go out here and put another positive image of Black men out here, because we need more images of heterosexual Black men out here, and images that show us these heterosexual Black men as leaders, as authority figures, as heads of household. I mean, I write these kind of stories on the regular. I've been writing them ever since the early 90s, and in the 2000s I would do stories, and a lot of my stories had Black fathers in them. And I remember people would get upset when they would hear me talking about Black fathers in a story, and I would really be shocked at that, because I'm sitting there going, you don't want a story with a Black father in it? I mean, that's how dysfunctional the thinking has become in the Black community, that when you start talking about Black fathers, that some Black people get upset about the whole idea of a Black man being in that leadership role and being in the role of head of household. And it shows you how deep the social engineering and miseducation are as related to the propaganda that is being presented. And this is something that people really aren't thinking about. They're not really understanding that there's a problem here when you don't see a Black father as normal. And I've found a lot of people, due to this social engineering, they have taken these shots as related to the war on Black men, because they don't even see a Black father as normal. They think a Black father is an aberration. And this is something that many people, they don't really see all the time. And I remember just people getting upset when I put my novel The Thetas out here, and the Colleen character was living with her father, and they were getting upset about that. And I was like, how are you getting upset? This is a Black father in a story. And another story I did, A Recipe for Success, where I had the Black man as the father. And again, that's all about the social engineering that Black people have been brainwashed to believe. I mean, we have basically, because of this war on Black men, we have people who believe a Black father is someone who did not exist. So this is how bad things are as related to Hollywood's war on Black men. And this war that's being waged is one that we cannot fight by seeking mainstream acceptance. We have to go out here and create new Black media, and we have to create new Black media that goes out here and presents a positive image of Black people, a balanced image of Black people, a humanized image of Black people, and a image that shows us balance as related to the Black image. And we've got 108 watching and 78 likes. Let's get the likes up to 100 because that's going to help with the YouTube algorithm. And we really need more, again, more of us producing our own media because there's a war being waged on us. And the way we counter that war is by going out here and creating media that presents us as who we are. And that's one of the things I do on the SJS Direct imprint, because with the mainstream media, they're not giving us a diverse picture of the Black experience. No, all they want to do is put us in the ghetto box. They want to put us in the hood box, and they want you to see the Black man only in the role of a criminal, only in the role of a thug, only in the role of a hood dude, only in the role of a pookie. And once you start to deconstruct these images, you will see that these images are nothing more than a repackaging of old racist caricatures from the antebellum South, like the Black Brute, like the Minstrel, and like other caricatures. They don't really want you to see yourself in a humanized role, and they don't want you to see yourself as somebody who can be on the same level of your whites and non-Blacks. No, they only want you to see yourself in the roles that they feel comfortable with, like these roles like I just mentioned. And what's even more troubling about these roles is they don't get white racists to produce these type of media these days. They go out here and get Black bootlicks to push these stereotypes to Black people. So you have, instead of your white producers like they had in the 70s to produce some of these Blaxploitation movies, what they do is go out here and get people like your Chandra Limes, your Lee Daniels, like your Tyler Perry, and they have them go out here and produce those movies and then use those proxies to push the same racist narratives towards Black people that your racists used to push in the 1930s. And again, that's another way they wage war on Black men, because they go out here and they'll get a Black feminist, they'll go out here and get a member of the alphabet community, they'll go out here and get Black bootlicks, and they'll have them make the content that they want to see. And then because you have a Black face in front of it, you can't say that the content is racist, but the content truly is racist. And what they do is use a Black face to promote the anti-Black racism towards the Black man, like they did with Alice Walker. And then they elevate that person by saying, oh, we're going out here giving this person an award, but the award is an empty symbolic gesture. And that empty symbolic gesture is designed so that you will go out here and elevate these people to a high place in your society. And that person will push the same white supremacy to the masses as a social norm. So that's all part of how Hollywood goes out here and attacks the Black man. And like Trex 2 was talking about, another case of attacking Black men was like in The Last Jedi, how, again, that was another emasculation of the Black man. And what they did there was make the Black man into, again, putting him in that second best role. Then they emasculated him, and then they marginalized him. And again, it was all about putting the Black man in the background, and the way they did that was completely egregious. And a lot of these science fiction and fantasy mainstream media pieces, they go out of their way to degrade the Black man. And that's why I avoid things like the Star Wars sequel trilogy and a lot of these Greg Berlanti shows like Arrow and The Flash and all of these other shows, because the way they were doing Black men on those shows, yes, you had a Black man there for diversity, but passively, aggressively, you were degrading the black man and the black man's image. And that's again another part of how they degrade the black man. And again, more shots at the black man. Yeah, they'll include you, but then they go out of their way to disrespect you. And this is one of the things that the mainstream loves to do. They like to, again, declare war on the black man. And we have to be aware of these shots, because if you're not aware of these shots, what will happen is you will buy into this programming. And once you buy into that programming, then you start thinking that all I can be is this, but there's a greater world out there for you to be, and a greater role for you to play in God's world if you go out here and start looking at new black media and new images in black media. And the stranger brings up a great question. How can anybody hate a father or a leader? In my books, I won't have single moms, feminists, or thugs, and the black men will be portrayed as positive fathers and authority figures. Well, I can tell you, stranger, a lot of these black men and black women, they have been eating up this media for years, and a lot of people, they've had negative experiences. So a lot of people have daddy issues as related to their own life. So they don't think that it's possible for a black man to love his children, to care about his children. They don't think it's possible for a black man to be a father. And they don't think it's possible for a black father to exist. And it's really troubling that you get people to think like this, because once you start thinking like that, then you don't think of yourself as like a lot of black women, you don't start seeing yourself as a wife to a husband. You start thinking of yourself as a single mom. And that's the impact that this media has on the woman's mind and on the man's mind. He's not thinking, oh, I can be a dad and care for my children and help build something for them and build a legacy. No, I can be a pookie and I can be out here in these streets. I'm glad you're enjoying the live stream, T-Mac. Yeah, I do these shows because I just love to do them and I love sharing with the audience. But they don't really like to show you the black fathers out here. But that was one of the things that I ran into when I was promoting books like A Recipe for Success and The Thetas. I mean, some women were actually getting jealous of characters like Colleen Anderson and Cassandra Lee because they had fathers in their lives. I mean, I found that to be really disturbing when I saw it. They were upset about these two black girls having a black father in their life. And it's troubling to me that people don't see a black man as a father. They don't see a black man in a role of loving and caring for his children and providing for his children. But that's all part of the conditioning due to the war that has been waged on black minds. We don't really understand that there is a war on the people, on the minds of black America as related to black men. And what they want you to do is not see this black man in any sort of role where he has power. And that's why when it comes down to mainstream media, I have not been watching a lot of it. Now, I used to be a big time TV head when I was a little boy, but as I have grown older and seen the white supremacy in a lot of this media and seen this war practically being waged on black men, I have really been distancing myself from a lot of this media because it's not really good for your mental health. And it wasn't good for my mental health to just keep seeing like what I was seeing coming in the 2000s, just this surge of, just degrading images. And that's why I've just pulled away from mainstream media. And these days, I watch a lot of brothers on YouTube because this is just listening to other professional black men who have their stuff together that can really help you out. And also seeing brothers out here doing things like I watch a lot of Sprayway Customs videos. He does a lot of painting of automobiles, and just seeing brothers out here doing things that it shapes the way, again, you see yourself, and it makes you say to yourself, yeah, I can go out here and do this, or I can go out here and see different things. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that when you feed your mind, that's why YouTube has been a major change for things, because as black men have come on these platforms, things are completely different. And again, if you get the right media, you can change your perception of self. T-Mac, what did Jason Whitlock say? I mean, I might have to do a video on that at another time, but what did he say? But the whole thing is that when your black man is out here, and again, social media has changed a way some brothers have seen themselves, because again, when you see positive images of you, it makes you think that you can do things too. I mean, that's one of the positive things that have come out of these late 2000s, is that we're seeing more and more images of black men, as black people are taking control over their own media and taking control of the narrative. And that's why Hollywood continues to further fire more salvos. But what's happening is that you have people pushing back and pulling back away from this media. So you have people out here saying, look, I'm not going to feed my mind this garbage that you put out here as related to black men. And that's what you have to do, is stop feeding yourself the garbage and start feeding yourself healthy stuff like I do. Like, you want to go out here and get yourself some vitamins and stuff like that, because it helps with your health and everything. And again, part of being healthy is not just having vitamins, it's also feeding yourself healthy content. And when you feed yourself healthy content, then you can get away from these agendas that are being pushed towards you and start pushing yourself in a direction where you are going to change your perception of self. And instead of seeing yourself in a world where you're looking for white acceptance, you are looking for the acceptance and value from God. And that's something that your Madison Avenue and Hollywood don't want, because your Madison Avenue and Hollywood, they only want you to be a court jester in their world. And that's part of what they want for black men. They want the black man to be at the bottom of their world. But once the black man goes out here and walks away from that whole paradigm, he's no longer at the bottom of their world. And while that world goes and becomes rough for them, we start working towards carving our own path for ourselves. And that's something we need to do, again, with this media, because if this media is waging war on us, then why should we continue to spend our money to watch it? And even worse, why are we wasting our time watching it? That's a critical question I want black people to start asking themselves. Why are you wasting your time watching toxic media that is designed to make yourself see yourself as second best, and make yourself see yourself as the villain in your own story? Because that's what shows like Empire and Power and Scandal do. They make you think of yourself as the villain in your own story. You shouldn't see yourself as the villain in your own story. No, you need to see yourself as the hero in your own story, because the hero is the one working towards victory, and the hero, is the one fighting to overcome the odds and get success. Ray, I have not seen Lovecraft Country. I really don't go and watch a lot of this media, because a lot of it is toxic and it's just not good for you. So I don't want to feed myself toxic programming. So what I do is I try to feed myself positive media. And sometimes I just sit here and I'll read the Bible, or I'll read, again, books like Concrete Comics, books like those created by Black Sands. I avoid a lot of this mainstream media, because I know that there are agendas in it, and because I see the agendas in them, I just avoid them at all costs. That was one of the reasons why I just ended my Netflix subscription, because I saw the anti-Black racism in Cuties. I saw the deviancy promoted in Cuties, and that was the end of the line for me with that platform. And you can't, as I say it myself, I don't spend my money and your money, because you guys donate money to me to support that kind of content. And it's just not worth that a good investment, because I would rather give money to a lot of the great Black-owned creators who are trying to turn the tide on the war against Black men and help them build their business, rather than go to mainstream platforms like Netflix and many others that degrade the image of Black men and Black people and push stereotypes and promote negative ideas about Black people. So that's one of the things I do in my own life, is I shut this kind of media down. And that's something that I do in my life to keep my mental health, really solid, because you just can't, again, what you feed yourself is what comes on the outside. And again, this is the kind of stuff that really messes people up. So this is something that Black men have to understand, that the media that's out there from the mainstream is designed to wage war on you. It is designed to make you the villain in their story, and it's designed to make you see yourself as a bad guy. And you can't sit there and watch this kind of media, because this kind of media does damage to you mentally. And young Black boys, when they sit there and they see these kind of images, it has an effect on the way they grow up. So this is, again, something I learned growing up in my 20s and my 30s, and that's something I try to share with you guys in my 40s, because I don't want to see another generation thinking all they can be are thugs, all they can be are bad boys, all they can be are pookies and ray-rays, and all they can be is drug dealers and criminals, when there are numerous other avenues for a Black man to legitimately make money. And there are legitimate avenues that guys are out here making money on right now. And I have to, again, ask Hollywood, why don't you make stories about Black entrepreneurs? Why don't you make stories about people like myself? I mean, why don't you make stories about the guy with the home-based business? Why don't you make stories about the Black guy who wants to be a wrestler? Why don't you make stories about the guy who's working towards becoming an auto mechanic? I mean, but the answer to that question is, you don't want to see Black men going out in mass working towards goals. No, you want to put them on the prison pipeline, because that's what this war on Black men is all about. It's all about getting the Black man to, as a boy, grow up to not think about working on the road to becoming a man, but thinking about going on the road to either submitting and serving a Black woman and being taken care of by a Black woman, or going out here and thinking that the only way he can do things is to be a criminal, or to go out here and think the only way he can do things is go out here and be just, again, in somebody else's world as a janitor or some low-level job. They don't really want you to see a Black man being in that role of power. And that's why I say, if Hollywood wants to wage war on Black men, then I can fight back by not watching their media, and I can fight back by not supporting their media. Because if you're not going to make media that presents me in a positive light, then I don't have to spend my money on your media, because in order for you to make money on your media and push your narratives, I have to spend my money on that media. And if you won't produce the kind of content that I want, then I will take my money and I will take it to support those Black men and women who will promote the kind of media I want. Because again, those who control the money control the media, and those who control the media control the narrative. Now we have 135 in the chat, and we've got, 114 likes. Let's get this up to 125, because 133, we've actually broken the record for how many people I've had on a live stream. I mean, this live stream has been a blockbuster. I mean, have more people on this one than my last one, America Quits. I mean, this is a record for one of my live streams. And I didn't know that this topic would be that compelling. I mean, I just came up with it just about 30 minutes into it because I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about. It's like I didn't know what type of show I wanted to do tonight, but I just see this war going on as related to Black men. And the only way we're going to be able to get ourselves out of this is to go out here and support good, positive media, because that type of media, if we support it, it will change the way we see ourselves, and it'll change the way we see the world. And we'll go out here and instead of looking to seek white acceptance, we'll start thinking about things like Black empowerment and things like Black on Black love. And these are things that we can do by, again, pushing back on this war on Black men, because that's what they're trying to do in this media, is declare war on the Black man. And they want to go out here and make the Black man into a boogeyman. They want to go out here and make him a monster in one point. And then they want to feminize the Black man and emasculate him. And this type of media, again, this is all their agenda. And we have the power to walk away from that agenda. And that's what we can do as people, is say, look, if you're not going to make the media that I want, then I'm going to go someplace else. And I'm going to go to these Black-owned companies and support those Black-owned companies like Concrete Comics and companies like Black Sands. I get no compensation as related to sponsorship for any of these companies, but I love Black people. I love Black businesses. And as somebody who participates in group economics, I want to see these Black-owned businesses grow. And that's one of the things that I'm very passionate about as a Black business owner myself. I believe that there's space for everybody, and we need everybody, all hands on deck, if we're going to build a stronger Black community. And every Black company that produces positive images of Black men and Black women help in the fight, in the war against Black men, because every company that goes out here and presents you positive images of Black manhood, Black masculinity, and shows us Black men in their God-given roles as leaders and authority figures, every one of those companies, what they do is give us a positive portrayal of Black men for the world to see and present the counterpoint that we don't see in mainstream media. Now, I remember going to the Schomburg a couple of years ago to a show called Stereotypes and Human Types, and I see that parallel being played right now with Hollywood's war on Black men. Now, I remember going to that show, and they showed the human images of Black people, and they showed that we were working as fathers. We had Black men as leaders. We had Black men as business owners. But in the mainstream media, they had images of us as brutes, images of us as minstrels, images of us as savages. And that was their image. And that's what's going on right now. You have the human types and you have the stereotypes. But we have the human types produced by your new Black media, and you have the stereotypes produced by the mainstream media. And Alika Spain makes a good point. Yeah, Hollywood considers Black people as pets. They want to neuter and emasculate. And that's the way they see the Black man. They see him as somebody who is less than, and they see him as somebody whose masculinity needs to be taken away. And they want to take it away because many of these races, they fear that the Black man will lust after some white woman. But many Black men don't want white women. And that's a fantasy that they have. But most Black men, they just want to be able to have their own home, their own families, and take care of their own business. And the only role they see a Black man is at the bottom. And again, the role of the pet is something I talked about in why 70% of Black women are single. They want you to see the Black man as a pet that is under everybody, because in God's natural order, they don't want that's where in their order they don't want you to see that. I mean, I'm making it mixed up. In their order, they want you to see the black man as a pet, and even lower than a pet dog, and that's part of how they see them in their order. So I talk about that in why 70% of black women are single, and you can get that book on Amazon.com. So they want you to go out here and see the black man in that role lower than a pet dog, and that's all how they see a black man in their order. But in God's order, the man is seen as the head and the authority figure because he's the steward that God has established who is accountable to him. But they don't want you to see that black man that way, so they wage war on him through this media arm, and through that media arm, you see the black man as lower than a pet dog, and you see him as somebody you need to strip of his manhood because you don't think he can be responsible with his manhood. And that's what they want to do is emasculate the black man. And it's also something I talked about economic emasculation. All of it is done to take away the black man's manhood and have him in that role that they want, which is lower than a pet dog, and basically some sort of neutered, emasculated child who has to follow the lead of some black woman and be taken care of by a black woman as a child. That's what white supremacy wants you to see the black man as, but the black man is far more capable of doing more. And we have to go out here and show that to ourselves, not to other people, ourselves, we can do more. And we need, again, in order to do that, to fight this war against these anti-black images of black men, you have to go out here and get that new black media, because that new black media is going to change your perception of black men and have you thinking differently about black men. Again, when you look at an image of a black man, like on this John Haynes Taking Care of Business, and you see the black man being strong, this, again, it shapes the way you see yourself. It changes the way you see how a black man is. And again, these type of images, they won't make them in the mainstream media. And the only way you're going to get them is on new black media like the SJS Direct imprint. So if you want to pick up your copy of John Haynes Taking Care of Business, you can get one on Amazon.com. I'm going to leave a link to it in the chat, and you guys can pick up your own copy of John Haynes Taking Care of Business. And there are other John Haynes series books out there that you can pick up, like The Temptation of John Haynes, which starts the whole John Haynes series. And I have a lot of positive black books out there. So you can pick that book up. And I have other books, like the start of the whole John Haynes story. Like I have John Haynes, The Man with Nothing to Lose, another image of black manhood on the cover. So this kind of stuff, again, when you feed your mind positive stories about black manhood, it really makes you think. I mean, so the whole John Haynes story starts with The Temptation of John Haynes, which is a book people have loved. And these are positive stories featuring black manhood and black masculinity, and give you an image of the black man. And I remember one image I did that everybody loved was the cover of Isis by Dracula, and people loved it because it had the first cover I did with John Haynes on it. People loved it because it was an image of a strong black man. So again, the way you combat a lot of the negativity is by feeding yourself positive black media. And you definitely want to pick up some of these John Haynes series books and some of the other books on the SJS Direct imprint, like The Thetas and A Recipe for Success, which show you black fathers. Because again, feeding yourself this kind of media, it really shapes the way you see yourself, especially if you're a young black man or young black boy. And it really gets you to see the value in yourself. So I definitely am asking everybody, again, we've got 120 in the chat or so, head over to Amazon, pick up some of those books, and it'll change your perspective on things. And I'm also asking everybody again if to donate to the Cash App so I can continue doing streams like this that everybody enjoys. So I want to get ready to wrap up tonight's stream because I have a new e-steam story I'm trying to write, and I'm working out the logistics on the John Haynes at Death's Door comic. I'm working out how I'm going to do things as related to it. So I'm going to get ready to wrap up tonight's stream. I want to thank everybody for coming out to tonight's stream. And we got 130 likes. I want to thank everybody for posting all the likes. And I'm going to thank everybody for coming out tonight's stream again. And I hope you'll be there for next week's stream. And I want to thank everybody for taking the stream to over 120 viewers. So thank you all for coming out to tonight's stream and have a great night.